And welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is starting fresh. Each day we have the opportunity to get a new start and create new resolve and new intention. And let's just have an opportunity to talk about that today. Before we get started, though, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, all your molecules, and bringing ease and relaxation as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Good morning, and welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you here joining us this morning. And welcome to everybody else who's with us as well. And today we're talking about starting fresh and how we really do have the opportunity at any given moment, really, to start over, to create a reset, to just allow ourselves to create a break in a way from the past or from the momentum of life as it appears to us, to generate a new outlook, and with that new outlook, new potentials. So life has, or my experience anyway of life, is that it has its own momentum sometimes. And we can, in an altercation, you can sort of see this where there's this building momentum and friction, and we do have the opportunity in the context of that building momentum to step out, to stop. We don't often take advantage of it. We often get caught up in that momentum, but there is the opportunity to step back and kind of renew ourselves, kind of remember, reassemble, recenter ourselves, and to choose, to exercise a choice to not go down that road, for example. And oftentimes a day as a marker can present us with that kind of momentum, that there's just one thing after another, and we're stuck in that oftentimes descending spiral. And then we have the grace of sleep. Ideally, we get to sleep. And when we wake up, so many of us tend to go back and remember, recreate the experiences of the previous day that were so challenging. And so we start a new day facing the old challenges rather than creating a reset, allowing ourselves to remember ourselves rather than our circumstances, and to generate a new perspective, a new intention, a new possibility for ourselves. Typically, what we'll do is we just recreate whatever the upsets were from the previous day and then carry them forward. And so what if we didn't? What if we allowed ourselves a fresh start? What if we allowed ourselves first to become present to ourselves as centered, as whole, and then stepped into the prospects of the day from that vantage point, from that perspective, and renewed experience, coming into the experience of the day in a new way, resetting ourselves. I think that there's tremendous potential, or it's a way that we can actually access our potential to be able to rethink and redefine and allow ourselves the gift of reconceptualizing whatever those circumstances might be, so that we actually can have an experience of a fresh start. It's interesting how much we're willing to sacrifice for a sense of continuity or the illusion of control, where each moment has its uniqueness. Yes, there is momentum from prior moments, but waking up or going to sleep, even taking a nap, creates a break. And I think it's rather rare that we really truly utilize that break to say, okay, I'm doing a reset, I'm starting over. And the same kind of idea as today's the first day of the rest of your life, which is really true. It sounds cliche, but it truly is. And each day is a new day. We bring the influences of the past to that day in so many ways. It doesn't mean that certain circumstances are not present. They are. However, the way that we interact with those circumstances, the way that we interpret those circumstances, is something that is up for change, that we can actually moderate, that we can transform. And so the question is, how do I want to step into this day? That's kind of a wonderful question. And what if we first start out the day by centering ourselves, by sourcing ourselves, not as we've known ourselves to be, but as we choose to be becoming. And that's a big distinction, is to be looking at who do we want to be stepping into as our expression of ourselves, rather than who have we been. And when we allow ourselves to flood ourselves with the memories and the upsets and the discord of our history versus remaking ourselves, stepping into an unknown about ourselves, there may be comfort. There may be comfort in the known self, even if it's not pleasant, even if our circumstances aren't pleasant, at least it's known. I don't know about you, but I have had experiences in my life where I actually became aware that I was choosing a bad situation that I knew over a situation where I just didn't know. And as I look back at that, to avoid the unknown, here I was condemning myself to suffering. Um, it's very interesting that we choose that just based on what's familiar. That there's so much comfort in the known that despite its pain, we will endure that at the expense of our potential well-being in the face of the unknown. And if there's anything any of us can do that will make a difference in our experience of life, to elevate our experience of life, it is to become comfortable with the unknown and the uncertain, to be able to feel competent to navigate uncharted waters, to find that place of trust, I suppose, is really what's at the heart of it. To say, for example, life is happening for me and through me rather than to me. And when we have that vantage point, it allows us to step more confidently into the unknown. And the truth is that it's all unknown. There are certain things that are predictable, and there are certain things that we can make be more predictable than others, oftentimes by our own behavior. But what if we were to become more comfortable navigating the unfolding adventure rather than calling it the unknown, to just call it an adventure, that that there are all kinds of surprises and delights around the corner, that it doesn't have to be that what's around the corner is darkness or fear, that we can actually embrace potentials and kind of ride the wave. We don't always know where the wave is going to take us. Although we may think we do, maybe we don't ever know. But we can dance with that uncertainty. And I think part of the dancing with uncertainty is managing our expectations. So we tried to have a conversation about expectations last week, I think, and the role that they play in our lives in terms of trying to create this sense of predictability and certainty and control, the illusion of control. Because so often the feeling of having things be out of control is just overwhelming. And why is it overwhelming? Because there's a fear factor to it, right? The fear of the unknown. And where does that fear come from when it comes to the unknown? Why is the initial reaction one of fear? I think it probably goes to foundational survival mechanisms, but there's there's a sense of security that we gain by believing things to be predictable, and certain things are predictable, but the whole thing about predictability is that it's not 100%, right? Typically anyway. And we like to plan, right? We like to plan our future, and when we do that, we typically do it in a way that we think that things are going to unfold in a certain way, when and there may be a high probability that those things unfold as we anticipated. And yet it's funny, my mom has a friend who has this term she calls the X unknown, and the X unknown is really what we navigate, and that's where our potentials are, that's where our possibilities are, is in the X unknown, like our possibilities for growth and change and transformation and possibility and new potentials and new capacities and capabilities. All of that resides in the unknown. Again, it can be predictable, but it's unknown. There can always be something that shifts the trajectory. And it's interesting because I have felt from time to time very much in a rut where life feels too predictable, right? Or there's just no visible indicators that there's some excitement. So when we think about excitement, what is that? It's sort of the unknown, right? I mean, when we think about excitement, we think about doing something that is fun, exhilarating, perhaps. What makes it exhilarating is it's the newness of it. Because even the most wonderful things, when we first experience them, they're so wonderful, and then we become habituated to those things. Like even a delicious, amazing food, for instance, that you taste and enjoy, if you were served that same food every day, it would become really mundane and boring and limiting, right? We want variety. It's a matter of how much variety we can stomach or we seek. So Rosalind says the shift is being able to see or be aware of more motivates to learn more. Be aware of more motivates to learn more. When not motivated, stop growing. Yeah. So, well, I think that that's true. Is it more? Is it different? Is it variety? I think variety is an important key here, to be able to create a fresh start, is to recognize that we're in a rut or we're in a certain pattern, and we get to look at other options. So when you're saying to see or be aware of more, that's like being aware that there are other options available that perhaps we haven't exercised. And when we can recognize that there's got to be something more than this or something different than this, then we can activate ourselves to go explore for that and invite that. But I'm wondering, what does it take? I mean, some of us are more comforted by routine than others. So there's a balance of how much routine is supportive versus how much routine is stifling. You know, to be doing the same thing every day over and over can be very comforting for some people. And it can be absolutely life leeching for others, where the familiarity can dull one into being robotic, something of an automaton, where you're just going through the motions and dissociated. And yet some people, well, we all have different thresholds. We all have different thresholds for how much newness we thrive with. The thing is that it is that kind of change and newness that makes us grow, that makes us expand, that makes us respond and push the edges. It's at the edges where there is the most potential, because that's the unknown. So Rosalind says, if someone is suffering, then what would motivate someone to seek something different, to have a different outcome? Well, sometimes the suffering itself forces us to find an alternative. You know, when we have suffered long enough, when we have suffered so deeply that we just need to make a change, that's when we can look at what does it take to move out of that suffering. What kinds of actions or patterns of thought, what kinds of choices can we make that transform that suffering into new potentials? And it often is when we suffer so deeply that the greatest transformation comes about, because oftentimes the structure of our reality that is causing the suffering just needs to change. And it's through the pain of that experience that we find the momentum and the motivation to say, this is just not working anymore. I cannot bear this anymore. Something has to change. Something's got to give. And so that's when we can create a fresh start. I'm just wondering, when we have that extreme circumstance, that's when we can find the motivation. The thing is that at any moment, really, we have the opportunity to create a fresh start. We can see ourselves going down a path, or we can say, wow, you know, like, this is the current circumstance. Enough. Let's shift it. What are we going to change? Let's switch it up. What's possible here that maybe I didn't recognize before? What can I create today? What can I envision or intend or commit to today that allows me to reinvent myself, to reinvent my situation, to take the steps to make the transformations that my heart and soul are calling for? So it's interesting, because so many times, so many of us use the new year as an opportunity for a fresh start. I can start over. I'm going to make all these commitments. I'm going to turn things around. I'm going to lose 20 pounds. I'm going to exercise daily. I'm going to wake up early. We make all these resolutions, right, at New Year's. And then our resolve falls away oftentimes, right? But the thing is, we don't need to do that just on New Year's. We can do that at any time, and we can do it from one day to the next, where we start over if we want to. And it does, and when we start over, it doesn't have to be Groundhog Day, or it can be Groundhog Day, because the beauty of Groundhog Day was that each new day, while it looked the same, gave new opportunities for growth and development and transformation, even though the day looked very similar. There was the opportunity to pursue all kinds of new avenues and deepen and enrich oneself. And so we have that opportunity at every given moment. And we have the opportunity to utilize it, to just stop, step back, reassess, choose in any moment. The greatest power we have in any given moment is to choose how we want to be, how we express ourselves, what we're committed to, how we demonstrate those commitments, who we are, how the world is. We get to reset that at any moment, at any moment. And the freedom and potential that resides in that ability to reset, to choose, to recreate is something that is a great thing to remember and to exercise at any given time. That it's within our power, within our will, within our ability to transform ourselves at any given moment. So with that, that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And as always, it is my privilege and deep pleasure to have the opportunity to have these morning musings together, to be looking at the meaning of life and what it is to be human, and just to experience this unfolding adventure together. So with deep appreciation, until next time.